the baby looks like Carlos from The Hangover. This is RamView.
Out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Hang on, hang on.
Live from the studios of the Ram Cave and the home of the Camellias, I'm Joe Tarosian, and this is RamView, the July 1st, 2024 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word. KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. Speaking of which, that's where I was last week. It was hot there. It's hot here. I had to turn off my air conditioner in the Ram Cave so you would still be able to hear me. So I'm going to be sweating up a storm, and no, I'm not having a heart attack. And the least that could have happened, could somebody have been arrested? Could there have been a trade or something while I was gone? Because not a whole lot seemed to happen. This does feel like the slowest period of the year for a Ram fan, or for any NFL fan for that matter. But I was encouraged to watch Behind the Grind, episode 3. Again, I kind of like Behind the Grind. I don't hold my breath waiting for Behind the Grind. It's an in-house production. It's always going to be good and all that kind of stuff. But what really cracked me up was, we'll talk Kobe Turner here in a second, but what really cracked me up was when McVay saw Colby Parkinson's son, and his son was wearing the sunglasses. And the first thing McVay says, he goes, "He looks like Carlos from The Hangover." I thought that was classic when he said that. I thought that was really funny. Looks like Carlos. That was pretty good. In regards to Behind the Grind, it is what you expect it to be. Kobe Turner seems like a really good dude, right? He seems like a really good dude. And again, that kind of player the Rams seem to go after, right? And, you want nothing but the best for him. But as he keeps talking about his music and everything, I just hope he doesn't turn into Wayman Tisdale. Now, that's a blast from the past that maybe a lot of people aren't going to remember. But Wayman Tisdale was a forward for Oklahoma Sooners. He ended up getting drafted by Indiana, played with Sacramento. He had a nice career, but it was nowhere near what everyone thought it would be, because he was a jazz musician. I think he blew the sax, and he was very talented, and it kind of became his passion more than the game. And I'm really hoping that we don't have a Wayman Tisdale on our hands where maybe Kobe Turner in a couple of years just decides he wants to get in the music business. That has happened before. I don't know if any of you out there would remember the Cincinnati Bengals had a Pro Bowl DT named Mike Reed. And Mike Reed was an excellent defensive tackle. And he ended up retiring to write songs there in Nashville. And he's won some Grammys for his songwriting. But everyone thought that's crazy, and he got out early. So I'm just hoping Kobe Turner can do both. He can multitask. I'm just hoping he doesn't cut short his career. The other one I wanted to throw out there was just, they talked a lot with Blake Corum. They showed the yoga stuff. That was okay. I just like watching them interview Chris Shula. Shula looks like he has a total handle on things. And I know that's hardly a news flash, but every time you see Shula there, he just feels like this is a guy that's been in the room for a long time. He doesn't come across as a first-year DC, right? And so that gives me confidence going forward. And then especially when you look at the Rams front seven, and 4 of those front 7 have been drafted this year and the previous year. That's a young quartet there in Verse, Fisk, Young, and of course the conductor. And again, anytime you see that stuff put together, it's like, wow, the guard has changed, and the Rams are built for the future. They got a 3-year Super Bowl window. Speaking of which, talking about football itself, I working camp this past week. I didn't get a chance to do a show, which I don't think you guys missed me that much. But I didn't get a chance to do a show. But one of the things that I came back to, and almost everywhere, it's like 9 reasons why, Matthew Stafford wears number 9, 35 players that are ready to make an impact in the NFL this year. There's all those desperate dead period things, right? I looked online to see if there were any podcasts up, and very few podcasts were up. The Aaron Corsicelli one, the former NFL Network personality, she's doing Believe Rams, and she had Joy Taylor on, and I find Joy Taylor, Joy Taylor, I just won't listen to her. So there was nothing really to listen to until this morning. I found Rams Up, which is something I've listened to before. I keep forgetting if it's Mark Burns. I can't remember, but Mark runs that. And they got a guy, Tom Courts, who's there, who I've spoken to. And they also got a coach, or a guy that used to be a coach. He's on the East Coast. His name's Paul Walia. They do episodes every day. Some of them are round tables that are an hour long. Some of them are just, 20-minute sips, 15 to 20-minute sips. And they did Walia's World today. And I am not bucking for anybody to leave me to go to them. But Walia broke down the Rams 11 personnel and why the Rams are going to stick with 11 personnel. And it reminded me, as he shared this so articulately and in depth, it reminded me when I wrote my first book, and I'm not necessarily doing a book pitch, but this was my first book, Tangent Dreams. It's a high school football novel. Did very well anyway. Got some good reviews. Made some, profit. So it's always still available to you guys. Also available in e-form. But as I was doing that, I realized, even after 20 years of being a sports writer, or 18 years at that point, I realized I didn't know as much football as I thought I knew. I mean, I'd seen thousands of games, written a bunch of game stories, but I ended up having to rely on a bunch of coaches and players for stuff that I just took for granted. And it really caught me, because not every sports writer was like this, but there were a few when someone would just throw out casually the term, oh, they're going to run a cover 2. Oh, yeah, it'll be a cover 2. And I started asking, like, can you describe what a cover 2 is? I had an idea of what I knew what a cover 2 was, not as in depth as others. And there was the Tampa 2. And then I realized a lot of sports writers, we just throw those terms around. Oh, it's going to be a cover 2. They're going to run the Okie. They're just going to run this, they're going to 5-0, and there were some who absolutely knew it. Steve Ramirez, who watches us quite a bit, he knew it. But there were others out there that just loosely threw the terms out. It's like, do you know anything? And listening to Paul Walia today, I think I know football. I've written a lot of football, right? I haven't coached football. And how he broke down the 11 personnel, why it makes sense for the Rams, what McVay likes to do out of compressed formations, and running the, attacking the defenses that messed the Rams up in 2018, the Patriots 61 with the 6 up front and all that. I mean, we knew that the Patriots had changed things up and really frustrated McVay in that game, all Ram fans, and how to counter it. And it was just a marvelous 40 minutes with Mark interviewing Paul Walia. And again, I want your patronage. I want you guys to watch me, but I don't think often about having guests, but when someone can break it down like that, and here was the great part. While other podcasts and other social media and other Rams media is talking about, 10 reasons this guy's going to be an impact player, 5 reasons why the Rams should do this, 10 reasons, it's all this. It's just fluff. You're not learning anything. Paul Walia, and I got nothing to gain. I'm not on their show or anything like that. I got nothing to gain, but they really broke it down really well. It was a good listen. So if you're on Spotify, type in Rams Up on YouTube. I believe there's a YouTube version. I was working around the house and I was just listening to it, but it was excellent job there. And it was good content. And so, all you want now is just some good content and everything. So wanted to get that stuff out of the way at first. Someone asked me about Kelly Stafford while I was gone. I'll get into that a little bit here, but let's go around the NFL and other places. And again, I'm going to do one of those things. There wasn't a whole lot that broke this last week, except there was a couple of questions came up with some friends that wasn't even online. I wasn't even asked professionally. Who's your favorite team? Of course, the Rams are my favorite team. Who do you love to watch? I love to watch Matthew Stafford. What receivers? Oh no, I love to watch Puka and Kupp and what they do. But what other players do I love to watch? Of course, as a football fan, you love to watch Josh Allen. You love to watch Patrick Mahomes. But after that, I like to watch Justin Herbert. I really enjoyed C.J. Stroud last year. Jordan Love thrilled me, and I like Trevor Lawrence. I want to see what Trevor Lawrence is going to do this year. Someone said, "What about Lamar Jackson?" I said, "I don't dislike Lamar Jackson. I don't. I just don't think he's an elite thrower. So I don't really rush to the TV to see Lamar Jackson. I'll watch his highlights, but I don't rush there to see anything." Someone asked me about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's a really good quarterback, but Joe Burrow, that guy goes out all the time. He's like the Bill Walton of the NFL, right? And so no, those are the quarterbacks I like to watch. The receivers, I like watching the Ram receivers, but the ones I do like, Tyreek Hill, of course, of the speed, Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions. I just love watching how that guy gets open. Running backs, I love the bruisers like Derrick Henry, and I do like Jahmyr Gibbs. I enjoy watching Jahmyr Gibbs for the Lions. Safeties, defensive backs. The one I really like is Kyle Hamilton. I really liked him at Notre Dame. Edge, I like watching Myles Garrett. I like watching Max Crosby. Now, Steeler fan Rob in Missouri, he's always pestering me about, TJ Watt. And so I got TJ Watt fatigue. So I really don't care about, I don't rush to the TV to watch TJ Watt. But Myles Garrett and Max Crosby, I do watch. Just throwing that stuff out there as we fill in some spaces, we catch up with where we were without being on the air last week. Around the NFL and other places, nothing classier than seeing your new head coach, JJ Redick, drop F-bombs in his presser. I thought it was low-hanging fruit. I am not someone that is necessarily struck in and offended by somebody using foul language. I was a connoisseur of foul language much in my youth till I grew up and I heard myself and I thought how stupid I sound. And I was just stunned that Redick was dropping those. And again, the soulless Lakers, I'd have pulled that turkey in by his ear and said, "You straighten up, you apologize, or you're fired." But they're gutless. There's no soul there with the Lakers. And I was not impressed. I was not impressed with JJ Redick. And then, of course, after the drafting of Bronny, after the Redick hiring, now LeBron is ready to take less. And that kind of surprised me, which was, why is he willing to take less? And I thought about it. It's because he knows the KBM, the Kiss Butt Media, can't cover his keister on this one. He got his podcast partner. He got his son. And now he's willing to take a hit because he needs another player. He needs a DeMar DeRozan, who I think might be the last guy out there, because they're on the line, because this team's ready to go 40-42 again, or 41-41. This team's ready to go 45-37 and have to be a play-in team, right? And here's the thing. Does anyone want to play with LeBron? Klay Thompson chose to go to Dallas, right? Paul George is in Philly. I think did Harden re-ink with the Clippers yet? So who wants to play with LeBron? I think it's kind of interesting that a guy like Klay Thompson, if he had gone to the Lakers, if he really thought the Lakers were on the threshold of something great, why wouldn't Klay Thompson go to the Lakers, right? Why wouldn't he listen to LeBron? Apparently LeBron lobbed him a call. Why wouldn't he go there, right? Because the Lakers are a mess and the Lakers are a disaster. There we go. I'm Joe Trosian, a sports writer for 21 years. And now I get to do RamView, thanks to our sponsors at Kisser Law and Temple City Auto Repair. I do RamView and I write books, and they help keep me employed in my day job as I pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith. And you can find us right here online at Burbank Faith Virtual, burbankfaithvirtual.com, Burbank Faith Virtual, all across social media. And if you have any questions about that, please ask them. I'm happy to answer them. Don't ask me social questions or spiritual questions while I'm doing RamView, because no one clicks on to hear me, stand behind my pulpit when I do that. But you can shoot me a line sideways or on a sidebar. I'm happy to answer anything you'd like me to answer. I was one of the founding guys at Mid-Valley Sports. Those guys are still working. Tim and Dwayne, they're covering the Chargers now, and I get to do RamView. So I think I'm a little bit more blessed these last few years, although the Chargers do seem interesting. So the question came up. I'm sorry, guys. I guess let me see if I got questions. I do have a couple there. Manuel Correa is on. There we go. Thank you so much, Manuel Correa. Let's see. You liked the Lakers' first-round pick, the kid from Kennick, the kid from Tennessee. I'm interested in seeing that. I'm interested to see how that plays out. Steve Ramirez. I remember when I shocked the coach suggesting if they might if they might stem their D-line to confuse a high-powered run game. Okay. What was the response there, Steve? I'm kind of curious what the coach asked you, and I want to know which coach. You asked that to, because I might know a few of the same coaches. Steve Ramirez, Lakers are like number 6 in my fandom. They've taken a tumble. If you connected with me in the 80s, they would have been right up there with the Rams and Dodgers. And now the Dodgers are out and the Lakers are out. And so I'm strictly a Ram fan these days. So thank you guys for the questions. Thank you for welcoming back. If you have anything, please shoot them to me. It is fun to interact with you guys. We probably won't be too long today because I don't have enough material to talk about, but also I don't want to melt. I mean, I don't mind losing weight, but man, I can feel it dripping off me right now. So the question came up about Kelly Stafford. I really don't care, guys. I'm sorry. I really don't care. Kelly Stafford dating the backup at Georgia quickly morphed into Kelly Stafford sleeping with the backup in Georgia. And that's how everyone ran with it. And it was stupid for them to run with it that way. But honestly, she never should have said anything. And sometimes she just needs to keep her trap shut. Too much information. No one needs to hear something like that. And I believe she's a good person, a loving mom, a loving wife. But I don't know if she should have that platform she has, because I don't think she's helping her husband or anyone with the podcast when she goes off the rails. And I'm not saying, she shouldn't have a podcast because she's a woman, yada, yada, yada. But maybe she shouldn't have a podcast because she's his wife, and she puts probably him in some delicate spots. And that's all I got to say about that. She didn't need to share who she dated to make Stafford jealous in college. That was low-hanging fruit. It was weak cheese. Also, while I was gone, I had posted a comment on one of the football message boards, and it just basically just typical sports writer stuff when you talk about players getting cut and players getting released. And I mentioned there was a couple of Ram players that might get the big goodbye this summer and say, thank you. We have some lovely parting gifts for you, kind of what they used to say on the game show. And to me, I took heat for it. Someone thought it was a cruel statement to make. And I thought, if someone thinks that's a cruel statement to make, then they're not really football fans, and they're taking things far too seriously. It's a man's livelihood. It's sports, man. It's sports. You walk out of a bad movie, don't you say it sucks, right? Don't you say the actor did a terrible job, or is that just too mean? And we're just having fun with it, and it makes it livelier and easier to read. But yeah, there are players on the Rams like Stoops or even Logan Bruss that, McSneed's going to call them into the office and say, hey, thank you for coming. Thank you for participating. We have some lovely parting gifts for you. And I'm always surprised when sports fans who live on media boards get so touchy and so offended by things. It cracks me up. I remember when the MLB implemented all the sliding in the home plate and blocking the plate stuff. And I remember, and it has, I remember saying, this is just going to cause a disaster later on. It's going to cause trouble. And then some self-righteous rube got on there and said, well, I guess you just don't care about players. And it's like, really? It's like such low-hanging fruit. And yeah, so I took some heat. So I was a bad guy while I was gone. So, all right. Hey, let's look at that Rams schedule again and see if you guys have any thoughts about things changing. Week 1 is September 8th. The Rams are going to Detroit, Sunday Night Football. I think that game could go either way. My important thing there is I don't want the Rams to get too high and think they're going to get revenge for a game they lost in January. It's a new season. I do see the Rams being able to go in there and win that game. It is a 50-50 game for me because I don't know. I really don't know. That's an up in the air game. If the Rams aren't thinking about the Lions from the week before and the 49ers in week 3, I think they go into Arizona and they clean up on the Cardinals. I think that goes well. Week 3, of course, they got the 49ers at home. I think that's the time to get the 49ers. Week 4, they go to Chicago to play the Bears. That's a 10 a.m. game in September, and that's great weather in Chicago, so the Rams should be okay there. I like them in that game. Week 5, October 6th, they get the Packers at home. Finally, after all these years, they get the Packers at home, and I think they break the regular season curse there against the Packers. They get a bye in week 6, far too early. Week 7, the Raiders come to SoFi, And I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to break down. I understood keeping Antonio Pierce. I understood that, but it's going to be interesting to see, was that just a late season rah-rah, or are we going to find out if Antonio Pierce is really an NFL coach that can put this team on a path going forward, right? My feeling is if they could get to 9-8 for a couple years in a row, Antonio Pierce will have done a great job. They still need to find a quarterback, but they got Colton Miller, Dylan Parham. They got a good offensive line, a solid offensive line, and of course they got Max Crosby and the unsung Malcolm Kuntz. Then the Rams play on Thursday. They play the Vikings at SoFi. That one the Rams should be okay. In week 9, November 3rd, they go to Seattle. I think the Rams are in good shape in that one. Then week 10, they got the Dolphins. The Dolphins are a good team. Dolphins are a dangerous team, but I'm not scared of Tua. Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, those guys all scare me. Devon Achane and a Raheem Mostert, yeah, those guys can be a little scary. An offensive line with Taron Armstead and those guys there, okay. But Tua Tagovailoa doesn't scare me. So I like the Rams in that game. November 17th, week 11, the Rams go to New England. That's a 10 a.m. game. Again, that's a northern game. It's not a bad time to go. It's still November. It's in the morning. I like the Rams in New England. And then you got the Rams hosting the Eagles on Sunday Night Football. Not a big Eagle fan. I think this is the last hurrah for Nick Sirianni. If they stumble bum coming out of the gate, if they have any issues, I think Sirianni gets the axe and Fangio ends up being the interim or something like that. Jalen Hurts, I'm not sold on 100%. Some people say it's because Shane Steichen left and went to take the Colts. But Jalen Hurts has not looked good since the Super Bowl. And even in the second half of the Super Bowl, he didn't look that good. And so, I'm not really up on the Eagles. I'm not a Saquon Barkley guy. Brandon Graham is getting old. Bryce Huff was a good signing, but they got a killer offensive line headed by Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, and Mailata, those guys, and Landon Dickerson. Saints, Rams go to New Orleans. We should win that game. I say we, the Rams should win that one. And then the Bills are at home December 8th, right there in SoFi. That should be a really good game. Again, these are games the Rams are in on all these games. I don't see them struggling in these games. And then week 15, they go to Frisco for a Thursday night affair. Frisco's going to get even. That's where Frisco's going to get even. That's if they're healthy, right? What's Brock Purdy going to be? What's Deebo Samuel going to be? What's Christian McCaffrey going to be? What's Trent Williams going to be, right? And Trent Williams really is, it's like a house of cards. If he goes down, that offensive line is in ruins. And so, yeah, something to keep an eye on there. And then the Rams' only second cold weather game late in the season is in New York against the Jets on December 22nd. And where the Jets are going to be there at that time with an aging Tyron Smith at left tackle, an aging Aaron Rodgers. It'll be interesting to see where the Jets are. I think the Jets are kind of a wild card team, not necessarily a wild card playoff team, but the Jets are a wild card team. Cardinals, week 17, I think they should be better, but we'll have them at SoFi. And again, as I've always said, Kyler Murray has never scared me. Just never has, right? Barry Manilow music scares me more than Kyler Murray. And then week 18, the Seahawks at home. So the Rams get 2 games at home to close the season before they go into the playoffs. All right, let's see. Oh, Gene Murphy. Okay, Steve Ramirez, I asked who the coach was. You asked that tough question too. Gene Murphy, Cal State Fullerton. He paused and said it was something they might do. I think he was surprised I knew the term. Ooh, okay. So you looked good. That's a good one. Let's see. USA expat. If you don't want the opposition saying bad things about your wife now, I suggest a 0-sack season. There you go. That's funny. USA expat. Awesome. All right, guys. Let's take a look here, and I think we're there. My man. Let's look at this date in Rams history, July 1st, 1967. The Rams signed a free agent undrafted receiver named Wendell Tucker, who had bounced around a little bit in the league. Tucker makes the Rams, plays with them 4 seasons, and ends up ultimately in the trade for Lance Rensel. I think he was number 14 on Steve Ramirez's heartbreak team from 1969. And his best year came in 69. He caught 38 passes, 7 touchdowns, including a 93-yard pass play. And he got traded to Dallas, never made the roster, and that was the end of Wendell Tucker's career. out of South Carolina State. Let's see. On this date in 1971, the Rams released Elijah Pitts. They signed a 17th round wide receiver named Joe Sweet. They signed a free agent linebacker named Ken Geddes, who we know about. But they also signed a free agent cornerback named Nate Wright. Now, Nate Wright had bounced around, played a little bit with the Cardinals, played a little bit, I think, with the Falcons. I'm not sure. But he came to the Rams. It was with the Rams during the summer. And then they cut him. And he ended up ultimately in Minnesota for 10 years as a starting cornerback. Picked off 31 passes there, 34 total in his career. He wasn't an all-pro, but he was just one of those pain-in-the-neck Vikings that Ram fans hated during the 70s. Wore number 43, but he locked down their corner spot for a number of years. Also, on this day in 1972, the Rams released Kermit Alexander, defensive back, former UCLA standout. And Kermit Alexander was interesting because he was a star at UCLA, played for over a decade in the NFL, shined for the 49ers, good punt returner. With the Rams, he had pick sixes in 1970 and 1971. One pick he returned for 82 yards for a touchdown, and then he quietly faded away. The Rams released him. I think he played 72 and 73 with Philly. But where Kermit Alexander really stands out to me, because I didn't see him as a player, I heard his name, and I thought it was an interesting story. In late August of 1984, his family, his mom, and I believe some cousins or family members were living in South Central still, and some gang members broke into their house, home invasion, and shot them all to death. And it turned out it was a misunderstanding because they were supposed to go to the house something like 2 or 3 doors down. And so they murdered Kermit Alexander's family. And the killer, the lead guy there, his name was Taquan Andre Cox. And he was sentenced to death, I think, in early 1986. So bad story, justice for the murderer, right? As of today, 38 years later, Taquan Andre Cox is still on death row. And I believe Kermit Alexander is about 84 years old, and he's still on death row. And I really like someone to answer justice for me on that one. Where's the justice? He was sentenced to death, premeditated, went in there and whacked these people, and he's still on death row for 38 years, right? Kind of remind me of the Richard Ramirez thing. He died on death row. And so what justice was there for those families when they said he was sentenced to death, And, we get into the whole spiritual business of forgiveness, but if you just want to talk about blanket justice, it's not really justice, is it? So something to think about there. I'm sorry, that was just associated. That's where Kermit Alexander came to mind. And he always comes to mind in that way for me. In 1976, on this day, the Rams signed a free agent wide receiver named Earl McCullough. Played with O.J. Simpson at USC. He was a sprinter, great speed, had a couple of good years with the Lions. He didn't make the Rams team, though. I remember being excited when the Rams signed him. And they also signed this guy that was a refugee from the WFL. He was a quarterback. His name was Pat Hayden. Did you ever hear of him? Yeah. Born on this day in 1944, wanted to throw that one out here, was a guy named Diron Talbert. One of the first football cards I ever got was this Redskin defensive tackle named Diron Talbert, University of Texas. Flipped his card over, and I saw that he was drafted 5th round by the Rams in 1966. George Allen's first season as Ram head coach. Talbert was 6'5", 255. And here was his misfortune. He ended up being a DT with the Redskins, but for the Rams, he played a little bit of DT, but he also played defensive end. Where were you going to get playing time with the Rams in the 1960s when you're playing behind, you got Rosie Greer, you got Lamar Lunde, you got Merlin Olsen, you got Deacon Jones. Later on, you got Coy Bacon. Later on, you got Roger Brown. And Diron Talbot eventually became a starter. I think it was in 68. He started as a defensive end and then later moved to defensive tackle in 69. But it was interesting, when they went back and they reviewed by film what sacks players got in those days. Talbot recorded 11 and a half sacks for the Rams in 1970. And in 1969, he had 7.5. So he became a starter in 69. I'm sorry, when Lamar Lundy got hurt. So he had 19 sacks in 2 seasons. So this guy wasn't some throwaway, right? But he's so easily forgotten for his Ram career because he got traded in that giant Ramskins trade in 1971. And he went to Washington. He played there for 10 seasons up through the 1980 season, went to the Pro Bowl in 74. He had 3 double-digit sack seasons for the Redskins. He recorded 84.5 sacks in his career, and he played, like I said, until 1980. And talk about operating in obscurity, right? Yeah, it's great to be in it. Like Kobe Turner was talking about how all these things have come his way because he was drafted by the Rams, right? If he had been drafted in Seattle, I don't know how much we would know about this guy, right? Same thing for Diron Talbert. He could have been gone someplace else, and he might have been something much bigger in the NFL, right? Instead, he comes to the Rams and is behind the fearsome foursome and all the guys that came in after that. You know, Roger Brown, if you want to consider him fearsome foursome, Coy Bacon, if you want to consider him fearsome foursome. But those guys were no lightweights. And Diron Talbert had a great career. And I was a little partial to the dude because he was a Redskin. He played against the Cowboys, which that always made me appreciate him. And also, first one of the first football cards I ever got. Lastly, real quick here on 1987, on this date, born was a guy named Garrett Reynolds. Garrett Reynolds spent 1 season with the Rams. He's a former 5th-round pick of the Falcons. Played left guard for the Rams in 2015. Started 11 games, and then he was gone, right? But you know who Garrett Reynolds was? He was the nephew of Jack Hacksaw Reynolds. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. How's that for an interesting thing there? Okay, tomorrow, since we're not on the air, it's the anniversary of Eddie Meter retiring as a Ram in 1971. Also, tomorrow, July 2nd, is the anniversary. It's the 39th anniversary of the Rams trading Drew Hill to the Oilers for conditional picks. And Rams didn't really get much out of that trade, but the Oilers got a star for their run and shoot. I don't think anyone in the Rams family or fandom considered what Drew Hill became for the Houston Oilers and Warren Moon. Drew Hill, he had an amazing run with the Houston Oilers, and I don't think anyone saw that coming. All right, let's see if we got any questions here as we cross the 30-minute mark. Let's see. Well, Steve Ramirez, Wendell Tucker was one of my favorite Rams. That 93-yarder versus the 49ers was the first football game I saw. Oh, so you were there. Nice work, Steve. Dang, dude. Good work. That's pretty special there. Yeah, I kind of think of you when I think of the 69 season, Steve. I had the Roman Gabriel book, Player of the Year. So I knew a lot about it, but of course I wasn't a Ram fan until much later. So, all right. I think we got the questions in. I think 30 minutes is a pretty good show. And looking forward to getting back in the rhythm, breaking down some college football going forward on Wednesday, just looking again at the Rams roster, who's going to make it, who's not. And then as I say, who's going to make it and who's not, someone's going to get on my case for being too mean. I can just tell you something. I'm not trying to be mean when I say we have some lovely parting gifts for you. But you know where Hard Knocks lost its way? Hard Knocks lost its way when it stopped showing players get cut, right? That was the hard knock that they took. Now it's like all, peace, love, dope, right? Let's all just get along. And sorry, that's not the NFL. That's not sports talk. All right, who do we got here? G's Nuts, always a good show. You're my man, G's Nuts, thank you. And you guys came back. I got to tell you, I was itching thinking, oh man, everyone's going to be so ticked off at me. I'm going to lose viewers because I'm not on the air. Because I like to be on the air. When I say I'm going to be on the air 3 times a week, we want to be on the air 3 times a week. So for the next 2 weeks, we're solid, huh? We're going to be on July 3rd. We're going to be on July 5th. We're going to be on July 8th. We're going to be on July 10th. And we're going to be on July 12th. And then I'm back at camp again, working the kids' camp. So I worked a CIT academy where we trained some young students to work with these kids. And now we're going to put them to work July 15th through the 19th. If you're interested in sending a kid to camp, let me know. All right, guys, take care. Thank you so much for clicking on G's Nuts. You made my day. USA Expat, Steve Ramirez, Tim Burns, Bronny sucks. There we go. Manuel, thank you for clicking on. Let's see. Steve Ramirez, the last good Hard Knocks moment came when the rounds OC and DC yelled at each other. Was that the Hugh Jackson year, I think? I thought it was kind of funny when Hugh Jackson was telling his coaching staff that included Todd Haley, right? And and was it Robinson? We're in there. He's telling you guys, you don't know what it's like to be on this side of the table, man. If there was ever a guy ill-equipped to be an NFL head coach, it was probably Hugh Jackson. That was bad scene, man. Okay, guys, God bless. Take care, and I will see you on Wednesday. Take care.